That company, the performance marketing company, called me up and they want me to drop out of college, fly out to Silicon Valley, join their team. It was very tough because it seemed like the perfect opportunity, but I turned it down because it's like that entrepreneurial drive. I wanted to build this myself. And just the fact that somebody was willing to do that, I realized that I could create it.
This is BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgenson.
Welcome out to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio. I am your host, Tyler Jorgenson, and today we have with us the legendary Aleric Heck, who you may have seen his videos. You may have seen companies whose videos he's run ads for. You've definitely spent money because of him, and want to welcome him out to the show today. Welcome out, Aleric.
Thank you so much for having me here, Tyler. I'm excited.
Okay, we're going to go into a lot of your background, your history, and I've got a bunch of curveball questions you're not going to see coming. First one, this is really, really important. How important is video in business today?
Yeah. So video, I think, is one of the most essential things right now in business because it is a way for you to get your message out there in front of people where they can actually see it and not just hear about it, not just see text on a screen. What I like to say is if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000,000 because it builds the know, like, and trust. When you get in front of the right people with the right video, it helps create buying decisions. And if you have a business, you absolutely need to be leveraging video to get in front of the right people and build that trust.
I totally agree. Now we're going to zoom back and we're going to get back to the beginning of Aleric Heck and getting into business. When was that moment where you first realized you were an entrepreneur?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think the moment when I first realized that was, it's kind of like, it's a twist on a classic story, the classic kind of lemonade story. I had a lemonade stand. I was like, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I remember I would set up and I'd be on the street of with the swim and tennis club. People would walk down and they'd get my lemonade. But then the fall came around and people weren't really walking by anymore. And so I asked myself, well, where are people going in the fall? I still wanted to sell my lemonade on the weekends. And I realized that people go to yard sales. So I looked in the paper. I found some of the yard sales that were coming there. I knocked on the door of some of my neighbors' houses that were going to have a yard sale. I said, hey, can I come to your yard sale, sell my lemonade? You can have as much as you want, and your customers will be refreshed and they'll be happier, buy more things. And I think that was that's my first earliest memory of entrepreneurship and and also the twist on it, kind of thinking outside the box, marketing, going where the people are. And
I love it because so many of the people that have been on this show have answered with the lemonade stand, but none of them are just the standard, well, I set up a lemonade stand and it was cool. Every single one of the entrepreneurs that I've had on the show, it was not just a lemonade stand. It was a lemonade stand that they did something else with. And I think that is the core spirit of entrepreneurship, the making something better, seeing a gap and being the one to close it. And I love how early that starts for so many of my guests here on the show. What was, you did lemonade as a kid, but what was your first real business where you jumped into an actual enterprise or into a business?
Well, the funny thing is I also did that when I was kind of a kid too. So I started my YouTube channel when I was 12 and back in the early days. So back in, 2009, so I'm 28 now. So I started when I was 12, 16 years ago on YouTube. And back then it was a totally different platform. I'm sure you remember, right? It was the star rating system, standard definition videos. It's not what it is today. Not as many people even fully knew about YouTube back then, which is kind of crazy to think about. Now it's so ubiquitous. But back then, I just remember being so excited I could post videos on a platform. And I had already kind of taught myself how to, use Adobe Premiere and start editing videos. And originally I was uploading videos with friends. But where it really turned into a business was when I started creating videos around mobile apps and how to use your iPhone. And it started off with just sharing some mobile apps and people were watching it. And I built a channel called App Find. But soon enough, a year or two later, after creating content, getting my first 1,000 subscribers, just creating some videos, I created a video that was a complete beginner's guide to the iPhone 4, teaching people how to use their iPhone for the first time. And that video, ended up getting over 1 million views. And so a lot of people ended up watching it. And then that video is basically went viral. And that brought a lot of people into the channel. And then I started doing more of that. I did these iPhone Complete Beginner's Guys videos. Those were always really successful, and ultimately grew that channel to over 600,000 subscribers. I did it mostly, kind of in that time frame, starting when I was a kid, but then doing it in high school and into college. And that kind of led me to, discovering the power of video and eventually going into the ad side of things as well.
Although it's changed, I think the general premise of YouTube is the same, right? There's two core ways to make money on YouTube, either through YouTube views, where YouTube pays you, or through advertisement sponsored, people paying to either be a part of your show or get ads in your show. Did you start to realize like ad side of things, or were you only doing the YouTube impression game?
Oh, I was doing both. And I was also adding affiliate marketing in there. I even was looking to like sell a course at one point, I was trying to monetize every single way. But the most successful were, the YouTube ad revenue itself. And I remember I had to apply. Now, you just have to have a certain metrics to get in the YouTube partner program, but I had to apply, and I got denied twice for the YouTube partner program. The third time is when I got accepted. So I made money from that, from the ads on YouTube, which is kind of alluding to what I, kind of flipped to the other side of things. Like, wait a second, how do these advertisers, they pay for ads? That's interesting. So that would kind of lead me to more discoveries there. But then on the other side, I had sponsorships, and I basically just taught myself, because back then, there were kind of influencers, but there wasn't really this understanding of here's the playbook for how to sell sponsorships. And you've been doing, your whole world for such a long time. Back then, right? It's one of those things where it was just, people didn't really know, and so I had to figure that out. At one point, my channel, because it was one of the top app review channels, I did tech, but there would be people with far bigger tech channels. But I also was doing app reviews. When an iPhone wasn't coming out, I was doing app reviews, and I became one of the biggest app review channels. And so because of that, I was getting at one point literally 50 to 100 inbound emails a day of apps that were trying to feature their app on my channel. And I realized if I respond to all those emails, and then eventually in college, I hired somebody else to do that, I could have a small portion of those people interested in the sponsorship and then buy a sponsorship for a video. And I turned it into a machine in which I remember I added this up at one point, over 250 individual sponsorships on that YouTube channel, which is pretty crazy to look back on and think about.
Yeah. So you're doing this through, like, you started at 12 and then you're evolving this and it is interesting how different the ecosystem is in the creator economy now, right? Like there's a lot more understanding of how to do sponsorships, how to do that kind of stuff. But back then you're figuring it out on your own. Did you undersell your first pitch? How did you learn, and what were some of the mistakes you made on the way?
Oh, 100%. I absolutely, I was underselling. I didn't really understand the value of it, but also I think that's also what made it work so well. It's really interesting because it's the duality of that, because when you have such a great deal, it becomes viral, and I got word of mouth. So, it's not like, yes, I was definitely undercharging, but at the same time, I was providing such great value that I inadvertently got great word of mouth referrals.
Yeah.
At one point, I'd asked somebody, how did you hear about me? And they had said, and I was asking some people, but like one of them said, and then I asked a few more people, and I found out that this was the case, that there was at one point a list of things to do when you launch an app. And somebody had put this up and SEO ranked it or whatever. And on that list was buy a sponsorship from me because of how many downloads you'd get, And then so
that's awesome.
I felt flattered. It's like, okay, launch an app, go get a sponsorship over here, get your first 1,000 downloads, whatever. And so it was very interesting.
I love that kind of stuff. And I think you're absolutely right. There is some duality to when you're just getting started, because you don't know how to price things. You don't know how to do things. And so sometimes you might undervalue it, but you also build something that's so important into the marketplace of reciprocity and rapport, where so many of these companies that were these app companies probably didn't have big budgets. Had you come in at the standard market rate, they wouldn't have been able to use you. And so I just love that, kind of like how beginners sometimes inadvertently help beginners. And I just think there's a really great, spirit of that. What, how did you decide to go from, well, I'm a great app reviewer and YouTube creator to I'm going to run ads?
So it's actually, there's a lot of, serendipity with the story, because basically what happened was in college, I was pulling myself out of the day-to-day of the YouTube channel. I hired a video editor, a script writer. I hired a business development person to respond to emails. And I had read, I know you interviewed, Tim Ferriss, but I read The 4-Hour Workweek. And like a lot of people, it was a transformative book. But instead of applying that just to, and he talks about this too, but instead of applying that to sit on a beach, I was like, all right, my thing I want to do, 4-Hour Workweek this, and then move into the next venture. Because I knew that with the YouTube channel, it was good money. And it was a lucrative, it was making the same as if you were doing a lucrative, job later in your career. So I was doing well, especially as a college student, but it wasn't the game changer exponential money. And maybe if I had, stuck with that, it could have been, but I knew I wanted to do something that had more leverage. So I systematized that. And that's when an opportunity came. The opportunity was one of the apps that I had done a video for. They got a bunch of downloads and this is awesome. And they tried to pay me a second time to post the exact same video on the channel again to the same viewers. And I had to tell them, I said, hey, I really appreciate, you want to do this, but I don't want to just take your money for something that it's not going to work the way that you think it's going to work. Right. No. It's you're not going to double the results posting the same thing, but you got to think this was 2015. Right. So it's just a different world. People don't know all the things we now know about organic marketing. But I knew it wouldn't work. And so I told them, well, but they said there has to be some way because this did so well for us. How can we amplify this? And I thought about it and I said, well, wait a second. What if we take that, and it was $500 or whatever that they had originally paid me, they're going to pay me again. What if we just take that $500 and we put that into YouTube ads and actually run an ad to this video? And that's what I did. And then they got thousands more downloads, which by the way, this was in the early days. So it's not you're going to get, but so they were blown away. And so then they tell their app developer friends. So then I'm doing another one. And also there was a performance marketing company that was working with them that catch wind of this. And then they want me to do it for this bigger company. Next thing you know, I'm doing a promotion with $1,000 a day budget as the second or third, YouTube ad campaign that I'm doing. And that does so well. I ran that for a period of time. That company, the performance marketing company, called me up and they want me to drop out of college, fly out to Silicon Valley, join their team. They're like, all right, we're all in our 20s. You'll fit right in. Right. It's going to be a great group. You get stock option invested equity or whatever. And it was very tough because it seemed like the perfect opportunity, but I turned it down because, it's that entrepreneurial drive. I wanted to build this myself. And just the fact that somebody was willing to do that, I realized that I could create it. And so I can kind of continue from there. But that's basically was the pivotal moment when I saw the power of YouTube ads and I decided to build this next business.
I think that's really cool that it was somebody that you'd worked with in the first iteration, right? I think that's neat that it evolved from that. And I think the interesting thing about the 4-Hour Workweek is Tim actually wrote it for what you said. He talks about if you had a muse, the first business you create is the muse so that you can go build the business you actually want, right? Fix the cash flow, then build the business. Yes, you can go live remote and do lifestyle design and that kind of stuff. But if people sometimes give Tim flack for not living, the 4-Hour Workweek life, he's like, that's exactly what I live. I do what I want, when I want, where I want. It doesn't mean I'm only going to work 4 hours a week. That was just the title that won the split test, right? Exactly. So anyway, I love that you're actually doing it in the right spirit of that. Mm-hmm. What's really exciting things that you're working on right now?
Yeah. So, basically right now, the big thing that I'm really focused on is helping all kinds of different businesses leverage YouTube ads. So we expanded beyond just mobile apps. And now we work with a wide variety of different, businesses from, big consulting and, coaching companies to software companies to products, to high ticket services, all kinds of different businesses. and we're helping them leverage YouTube ads to get more leads, clients, sales, revenue. That's the big thing. And we have different ways that we've been doing it. It basically, we have the ability to do it agency style. But one thing that I also saw is there's a lot of companies that want to learn how to do this, or they have internal team members that they want to train, or they're a smaller business, kind of like we were talking about earlier, helping, businesses that are up and coming that maybe can't quite afford the agency services from us or somebody else. But what they do want to do is they want to learn it themselves as the entrepreneur. And there's a lot of resources out there for things like Facebook ads, but YouTube ads is tricky for a lot of people, especially video ads, right? Like actually understanding how to create a good video and how to target that video. And so that's the big thing that we're able to do is we have different ways that we work with people, from a done for you to a group coaching to a hybrid. Like we'll set it up and show you how to do it, give you the keys. And that's kind of the big thing that AdOutreach has evolved into. And then I'm happy to dive into wherever you want to go with this, but I also have a software as well, keywordsearch.com, that does AI ad targeting for YouTube and Google ads. I got a CTO, co-founder of that company, and we worked together to build the software that I wanted to have to run ads more effectively. And then I know I was mentioning right before this, and I know there's a few projects, right? But the other thing is my book, Video Authority: The Art and Science of Converting Viewers into Clients, which should be available for pre-order and order soon here on Amazon and all the different sites.
I love that. So yes, as many people do, you end up now you have a few different things, but they all play in together, which I like, because sometimes people are doing three very fractured and wildly different, but these are all real part of the same thing. While you've been building, you're still pretty young, and but while you've been building and you've been doing a lot, you've been doing it for a while. What's one major mistake that you made, and how did you overcome that setback?
That's a great question. And I'll just transparent, because I think this is how we all learn, which is really, I love that you're asking this. Just be fully transparent. The big mistake that I made was it was twofold and they came together. So it's usually what happens is it's not just one mistake that gets you, it's two mistakes that come together that actually creates a big, kind of challenge or problem. And I know you know this, but for other people listening, it's definitely an important thing to look at. So the two mistakes that I had is in the earlier days, other than, some select, done for you, agency clients, we didn't have a lot of recurring revenue on the coaching side. I really scaled up the consulting side of things and helping businesses implement this and giving them the keys, which was really great. And there wasn't as much of an emphasis on the recurring revenue from those deals. Agency is different, but from those deals, which, because it took off and it was such a great offer, helping people learn how to do YouTube ads or implementing it into a business and, giving them the keys for it. I wasn't really building the recurring revenue the way I should have. Simultaneously, I was treating this company like a Silicon Valley company. We became number 60 on the Inc. 5000 list, fastest growing companies in America. We had 6,000, 52% growth in a 3-year period. That was leading up to 2022. But then what ended up happening is going into 2023, we anticipated a lot more growth and it slowed down. And I mean, this happened, not every company, it was all I had known up to that point was up and to the right forever.
Yeah,
There's obviously other people who are more seasoned. They're well, of course, there's going to be a potential down, quarter or year or whatever. But I had not known that my entire entrepreneurial journey from literally 12 years old until, I guess 25 or 26 or whatever. So, basically that combination though created challenges because we got, big offices, grew our team to 50 plus people, did all these different things. And I didn't realize, and then simultaneously I was hanging on to people that I shouldn't have, employing friends, the classic thing. So I had to learn, a tough lesson about actually, so in 2023, kind of restructuring, for the first time and figuring out, okay, how do I actually focus on efficiency and what's going to be the best? And then from that, also building more recurring revenue and, and also understanding that this is a part of business, because you beat yourself up with some of that stuff, but then you realize no, this is just there's different cycles, and then getting back into the innovation. And And so, yeah, that was kind of like, I think that was the biggest challenge and lesson all rolled up into, a few things that kind of were catalysts for some challenges that I had to work through.
When you got started early on, we mentioned there wasn't a lot of blueprints or things like that, and you figured it out as you went. But as you got into agency world, there's people that have built large agencies ahead of you. Did you look for mentors? Did you look for guides? Like, what did you do, to at least minimize the amount of challenges and focus on learning and growth?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had some incredible mentors and guides and people, ahead of me in different mastermind groups and different places. I know, we even met in these masterminds and stuff like that too, which is great. And that's where I think like being able to learn from people that have built before you. And I think that's one thing that's been really valuable. And what's really interesting is the challenges that I faced were also mirrored in some of the same challenges that my mentors faced as well at that time. So I think having a bigger breadth of mentors is actually really interesting because, you also got to look at how seasoned different people are and make sure that you're not developing the same blind spots other people have. So for instance, some of those exact challenges I talked about were actually similar challenges that one of my main mentors had at around the same time.
Yeah. And so, that's the power of mentorship, right? Is like, it's one thing if it's just a friend that's also, maybe they're one step ahead of you.
Yeah.
But it's nice if they're, a full flight of stairs ahead of you and they've tumbled a few times, because you can try to learn from their mistakes as much as possible.
Exactly.
That's the hope, at least, is that we'll actually listen to it and learn and not just hear the story. Yeah. As you guys are building, you've got now kind of multiple prongs of the business. What are you seeing happening in the video space? Like, what are some major changes or, trends shifting?
Yeah. So AI is coming in full force, and we are doubling and even like tripling down into that. So essentially what we're seeing right now is AI video has actually gotten good. This is something I had kind of foreseen, and a lot of us, who are kind of in the know and looking at things had foreseen. But now it's actually here. Google VO3, when that came out, that was the game-changing moment, just like ChatGPT coming out, right? Google may not have done it with their Gemini, like ChatGPT, even though Google been developing it, ChatGPT kind of beat them to the punch with that. But Google disrupted the game when it came to video. They just released such a powerful tool. And I'm sure, people, there's obviously a lot of other tools that are going to come out and are already coming out that are going to compete with that. But essentially what this means is you can now create like Hollywood level videos using AI. And right now it's 8 seconds. And so some people are like, oh, Aleric, it's just 8 seconds. Yeah, it's really good, but it's not going to be 8 seconds forever. And it's getting better and better. And what we're finding right now is something really, really interesting, is that AI is great at hooking and pulling people in. And then traditional videos, that's actually if it's an expert business, the expert, if it's a product, the product, actual videos demonstrating the expertise or product is good at building trust. So what's really interesting is what's working the best right now are hybrid AI ads. AI hooks at the beginning, followed by a traditional style ad that's either a talking head or a product demo or SaaS demo or whatever it happens to be. So it's basically putting an 8 second or maybe longer AI hook at the beginning of your video and then split testing tons of those. All kinds of different things. You don't need to set up a whole film shoot anymore. So you can split test a dozen radically different videos for, a $20 or $200, depending on which tier you want, Google subscription. You can split test a dozen different hooks. And then just literally one thing that people who are listening right now can take away from this is you can actually just go and take your best performing creative video asset. If you're using video, if you're not, now is the time to definitely do it, especially AI giving you tools. You can take your best performing video and then use Google VO3 to have some fun and come up with half a dozen hooks. Put those 8 second hooks. Put those 8 second hooks at the beginning of your best performing asset and split test it against the original asset. And odds are you may find one of those that actually outperforms your original asset. That's what we're finding. That's what many of our clients are finding. So it is definitely a whole new world with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting for how critical some people still are of AI. one, I always like the statement, this is the worst it will ever be, right? Like every day we are getting significantly better. I know there's like math and real numbers to that. I'll just say significantly. But if you look back, it was just a year ago or 18 months ago when we were still blown away by what images we could do with AI. And now those look so rudimentary and outdated and obviously AI, right? But it's just in that year or in 18 months, now it's not so easy to tell the difference between AI and real. And video, I feel like video got better really fast. And so I'm really curious to see what happens with, by the time this airs, ChatGPT 5 will probably be out. Like we'll see if it's really as big of a leap as they say, and what's coming up, whatever VO4 or 3.1 is going to be. Like these things are going to be significant. Does that scare you as someone who's built his business in video, or does it feel like this is just going to fuel you?
I feel like it's going to fuel me. I think that this also, I'll speak to another learning lesson that I realized, is that I thrive on the innovation and growth. And that is what is really exciting. I think that was one of the biggest things that built the initial huge wave of my business and all of the success, Inc. 5000 list, all of that stuff is I was on the forefront of YouTube ads, from the early days, pushing it forward. And then it had its big breakthrough moment. And I was already the expert and I was right there. And so right now, what I want to do is really become an expert in AI video and, video marketing more as a whole, going into that more holistically, to be right there and be on the cutting edge. And that's what I'm doing with my team. I had just a few weeks ago, I had a hackathon with my team where we were focused on AI and AI video. By the way, if you haven't done this with your team, it is so valuable. You get your team in a room and you basically go in, and there's multiple, they do this at Google, they do this at HubSpot, they do this at all kinds of different places. But basically you get together with your team and you say, here's the problem we're solving for. This one, the theme was AI and AI video. And let's go and let's just find all the different things that we can do to innovate. And then those become initiatives that we can push forward within the business and for our clients. And so I am fully embracing it and excited. Years ago, I think one of the things was I was, all the changes happening with YouTube and then AI, I was almost apprehensive about it. And then that was actually a challenge. Instead of leaning into it and saying, no, this is actually great. This is what we want. And we can be at the forefront of it for us and for our clients.
I love it. So business is not just about launching new products and services. It's about living the life of your dreams. I mean, we mentioned 4-hour work week and lifestyle design. What's one item on Aleric's personal bucket list you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
I love it. Well, my personal bucket list is the number one place I want to visit, which is Japan. And I am literally planning that trip with a few of my friends and my brother this upcoming weekend. So,
yes.
We're planning it. And then we're going to do it early next year or in the springtime next year. So I'm really excited. It
fit the bucket, right? Within 12 months. And that's good. Exactly. But you're planning it. You're making it happen.
We're making it happen.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. I'm glad that you're doing it. Where should people go to learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can go to, and I've got a 19-page YouTube ad strategy PDF, also covers some of the AI strategies too. You can go to adoutreach.com/gift. That's just adoutreach.com/gift. Of course, you can find me on YouTube. Just look up my name, Aleric Heck. I got a lot of value and content on there as well.
Awesome. Thanks for coming out on the show, sharing your journey a little bit, sharing your story, and letting people know they don't need to be scared of video and AI. They need to lean into it. To all my biz ninjas, wherever you're tuning in, watching, listening, or streaming, it's your turn to go out and do something.